Hello everyone, this is Menalesh Meti in English and I am Metasebia Ketsela. I've got a guest for you today. Last time when I was in Washington DC, I met this remarkable young woman activist. Her name is Hermela Mesfin. I saw her protesting in some sort of demonstrations, voicing for, be the voice for the voiceless, and I met her at the Senate meeting again, being the voice again, encouraging people to come out and be the voice for the Ethiopian people back home, and all the rest of it. I am going to have some time with her. Stay with us. Thank you and welcome, Hermela, for coming to my show again, second time, as you promised.
Thank you so much for having me, Mati.
Last time you were in the car, you're driving and you didn't have much time, but still lots of people were very grateful for giving me that, even though all the short information and your thought about Ethiopia and your voice for the voiceless and the children and the rest of it. And today I wanted to have more of you, and I want to really discuss about the things that you actually do at the moment and who encouraged you to be such a remarkable young activist and being the voice for the Ethiopian community back home. And I'm going to have to start off, tell me a little background about yourself. And I've actually did my homework, and I know your parents and your family, and they did a great job. Tell me a bit more about how you're exposed to this kind of service.
Sure. I know we did this segment, like you mentioned, in Amharic as well. Thank you for having me once again to address what's happening with the country in English for your English audience. So my name is Hermela Mesfin. I've been doing activist work since the age of 15. Regarding what's happening all around the world, really. I've been involved within, at the time, the Black Lives Matter movement, the gun rights policy movement that was happening when I was in high school. For my 17th birthday, actually, I celebrated it at a rally in Washington, D.C. So for me, I think the biggest part of what I've always done is I don't like to see injustice taking place in the world. I don't like to see innocent people being harmed, and powerful authorities coming in and dismantling communities like that. Those type of things have never sat right with me. So I've always tried my very best to get involved and go to rallies, whatever it is, just try to be a helping hand into getting to hopefully a better place in the world. Specifically regarding the Ethiopian movement, I mentioned this last time again. I'll just go ahead and repeat my story. But I had been in college only 1 year when I was exposed to the not so nice views that were happening on the Amhara people of Ethiopia. I've always known about that for years. My parents have made sure to make all of us, all the kids, I'm the oldest of 5, informed about what's happening within the country to the Amhara people. And so, but mind you, growing up, although I was told that I am Amhara, for me, it was, my father would always tell us about other ethnic groups by saying Tigringa Tanagari, somebody that speaks Tigringa, and or Gurakinga Tanagari, Orominga Tanagari, which is people that speak those languages. But and the reason why he would state it like that was to refer that we're all Ethiopian at the end of the day. It's the same country, but that there's different regions that just speak different languages, and with different additions to the culture with different areas and different regions and how they would do things and the type of foods they would eat. But that really, as a whole, we're all Ethiopian. So going into my freshman year, I was a part of the Ethiopian and Eritrean Student Association at the university that I went to. And so we would conduct many events, we would organize different events to show our culture, to show the Ethiopian Eritrean culture to the world, really, which is, mind you, this organization is active in a vast majority of the US-based or universities and colleges. So being there, I got along with whether it was the Tigray people, the Oromo people, whatever it was, we were all Ethiopians, and same with the Eritrean sisters and brothers there. We had an event where basically it was supposed to be like a line of events that we're presenting for the school, like students of the school, that shows our culture with dances, music, poetry, things of that sort. And so as we were on the very final parts of finalizing what that event was going to look like, and what the last bits and pieces of like what the flag and things of that sort would look like, the people from the Amhara side actually had mentioned that they would not be okay with bringing the current Ethiopian federally recognized flag with the blue star on the green, yellow, red. And we had said that we wanted to bring the plain one out. In the midst of this, we actually had one of the students that was Orominga speaking that came out and said that, like, basically threatened us, saying that if we had brought out the green, yellow, red flag with the Moambasa on it, which is the Lion of Judah on it, that they would no longer or like tolerate that, and that they would actually come out with the Kero Bandira, or the Kero flag, which is the representation of actually an extremist group within the Oromia region, which is two completely different agendas of, you know, what was happening. That right there opened up my eye to like what's happening, and just how those children were raised with hatred in their heart towards certain groups, specifically the Amhara group. And so since then, I started to really look into what's happening a bit more, just more than what I would be told from my parents and things of that sort. Started to open up news channels on my own and really start to get a feel of like what's happening on the ground. And that's when I started to come across horrific videos and horrific uh, like pictures of violence and dead children and dead mothers, and just very disturbing footage of what's been happening on the ground that the world news was not showing and was not broadcasting for the world to actually get a understanding of. So that I recall, like, the very first night I seen that, I quite literally could not sleep for days. I would keep having nightmares and wake up and things of that sort. I mentioned this last as well, that I'm actually, like, I'm big on my faith. So my family calls me the scaredy cat of the house, but like I stay away from like horror movies and things of that sort. I've never watched anything of like gore-ish. That's just like, as a human being, I just find it very difficult to watch things of that sort. And so for me to watch all of that, that was my very first exposure to what I would deem to be a horror movie to me. And from there, I just kept digging and digging and digging. And the question that kept rising in my head is like, there's so many Ethiopians all around the world. There's so many other people my age, older, you know, that have gotten government jobs, just so many different opportunities to become big and make a big name for themselves. But I started to see that, like, there's not too many people talking about this. And you have a whole ethnic group that's quite literally on the verge of completely being wiped out. You know, you see other parts of the world where they rally when something happens to them and injustices take place, and especially when it comes to the topic of Christianity, it was just like quite shocking for me to see that, like, things like this were happening in broad daylight and the rest of the world is completely silent. You have medias like CNN talking about, they report worldwide news and bring you different things that's happening all around the world on a daily basis, and that their agenda is to expose the truth and be a part of the truth. But I seen one big truth that was taking place within my country that nobody was addressing. So I had kept digging and digging at this point in time. Hachalu Hundesa, the prominent Oromo Ethiopian musician that had been, attacked at the time and then killed. And so that during that timeline, quite literally, you like every single, I don't want to say every single, but a vast majority of the Oromo friends that I grew up with, knowing that I went to school with, all of a sudden started to come out with like acts of violence and just horrific things that they were posting online on social media, inciting violence on the Amhara community, the Amhara people. That to me was like quite absurd, because it started to show me that, like, all these people that we went to school with and ate with and laughed with and grew up with and did all of these things with, had it in their heart to be able to drop the friendship and to turn their back on their significant other, whether it was their boyfriend,
And
girlfriend
that
at the time,
has nothing to do with the Amara people. It's
at
nothing
all.
with it.
Not at all. And that was very shocking to me, because I myself personally lost quite a handful of friends because of how they had decided to act at the time. They all went ahead and started to put a red profile picture, like they all turned their profile pictures to plain red. And that was their way of saying that they stood with the Kero movement, which was the young rebels. Kero means youth. And so the youth movement of the Oromia people and the Oromia Liberation Front, which is what...
The Kero movement started with to fight TPLF, and it's pretty much all the young people involved in it. But that was against TPLF, wasn't against everyone else. But then out of that group, there might be extremist groups, especially the one the government calls it Shene, or whatever they call themselves, the one in Walaga and those areas who killed lots of people. We've seen mass graves and killing of children and women, all the rest of it. Although I don't think they represent most of the Oromia, because they kill Oromos as well. But then I don't think the whole Kero movement has something to do with it.
Exactly. That was a very great point that you mentioned, was that it was out of nowhere. It was never a movement that was initially even created to like attack the Amharas, from what it was, at the way it started off. But all of a sudden now you're seeing the red, profile pictures, and the anger had turned to the Amhara people. And that was quite shocking to see. So at this point in time, we then started to see that these people now started to reach out to big celebrities, rappers, musicians, actors, models, things of that sort, where they're telling their side of the story, and it would necessarily did not align with the truth of the matter and what was happening on the actual ground. And so at this point, I just could not see myself just sitting there watching, the world understand a narrative that was untrue. And I would see our children, the Amhara children, the remainder of Ethiopians, confused and supporting a movement that they did not even have the knowledge about. So at that point in time, me and a friend of mine by the name of Betty came together. We got on a phone call and we're like, what is this? Like, what do we do? I know that our parents are the ones that are so involved, and our family, but at this point in time, it's come to the point where we need somebody from the youth that's speaking out, that's informing people of the real truth of what's actually happening, who the Amhara people really truly are. And so after that phone call, she tells me, hey, I know a few other people that are on the same they share the same values, and their mindset is kind of where ours is at this point in time. Let's see if we can put a meeting together and see where we can go from there. So we make a meeting happen literally 2 days right after our phone call. And it was people, one of the people that we met with was El Shaddai. He was in Australia at the time, going to dental school. Child of he was like a refugee, actually, an Ethiopian refugee that has made so much success for himself, an Amhara descent, that has made so much success for himself, a religious man. And then another man from Canada by the name of Sami, and his Instagram handle was Mamahir Sami. So just a few of these folks, that's that I just mentioned, came together. We said, hey, we got to do something. And that's when we started to brainstorm, like, what do we do? And at that point, we started to talk about, we need to, I think the biggest thing that we see is lack of translated media, lack of translated documents of the truth of what's happening. So then we go ahead, form a group of people, proceed to start doing work. And we created a page, and we're like, what do we want to name it? And I think after like lots of thinking, we got to the point of saying justice and peace for Ethiopia. See, our point was to say justice for what's happening currently right now, so that the innocent, the voiceless can have a voice, can have their stories told. But not only that, the peace angle that we found so important was that once we find justice, we want it to be a peaceful country, not anything where you would have one ethnic group having power over the other, and just the same cycle of like old politics that's been taking place over the country for 30 plus years, but rather a place where all Ethiopians, no matter what ethnic group they're from, are treated equally and live in a peaceful country where each of their differences are respected and, if anything, cherished and brought to light as well and embraced. So from there, we proceed to go ahead and create the organization by the name of Justice and Peace for Ethiopia. And then we wanted to decide what color we wanted to make our movement, because we were seeing red profile pictures left and right. And so after lots of brainstorming, we decided green was our color. And it was a lime green, actually. And the reason why we chose that was like green for us, like it represented nature, it represented growth, it represented, for like our vision for what we wanted the Ethiopia, the next Ethiopia to be, the Ethiopia of the youth to be, is a place of growth, a place of, where the natural order of things, which is like loving one another, which is what God teaches us, to take over. So that's what we decided. And at the point in time, we were able to successfully teach what I would say, a decent amount of people.
Are you planning to also teach the Oromo youth? Because we know there are people like Jawar and other people who have serious hate towards Amara in the rest of the Ethiopian community. But other than that, the rest of the Oromo people didn't have such a thing and still don't. But then they managed to mislead the young people to go really arrogant and, really bitter, but they don't pretty much represent everybody.
Exactly. Yeah, that was actually, I'm glad you asked that. That was one of the biggest agendas for us was, yes, you have to educate the Amhara children on their background, their, history and really where the truth of the matter is at. But also the other biggest side of this was to see if we can educate even the Orombo side and the Tigray side of children that were being fed with like misinformation, with the truly lies of what was happening and a completely untrue narrative of what was truly going on. And through this, of course, it was not easy whatsoever, because you're also dealing with people that grew up their whole life being told that, hey, you're on top and you're just next. From the Oromo side of things, you would hear people, I personally knew people that grew up with that same mindset where their father and their mother would tell them, if you marry anybody outside of the Oromo, background, that they would even disown him. I was a friend of mine that, grew up being told that. So it started to really open up my eyes, where it's like, yes, there's like a side where they really nourished and really, catered to, I would say, the extremist side of things. And there's like family households that are like that. But then there was also a vast majority that truly was just uninformed, that truly just did not know what was going on and just took what they heard. And of course, as anybody that's young at this day and age, especially in the US, and you're Black, you're told stand for, the abused and stand for the side that's been oppressed. And so when you have this narrative, at the point in time, I think something that was so dangerous that we've seen take place was the Kero movement had actually went ahead and compared themselves to the Black Lives Matter movement, where they also then deemed the Amharas to stand with the All Lives Matter movement. And so that's kind of what they compared it to. Every time they would basically put information out there in English, that's what they kept trying to tell people, is that the Amharas are sitting here saying, no, all lives matter, and that they're the truly oppressed ones, and we're just trying to silence them, which is completely false, So these are the little things that we started to pick up on, and we realized there's a big divide. There's a big divide in the amount of people that truly know the truth and that truly read through, what's happened and seen what's happened to get to the conclusion of where their mindset is at, versus the amount of people, like thousands upon thousands of children, that just took what they heard on social media, and now their favorite rapper just posted it, and now their favorite musician, or Naomi Campbell, things of that sort. Like Naomi Campbell, the international model, posted about the Tigray genocide just quite some time after that. Same thing with the Weekend, and from everything I hear so far from the information, dissent. He's not, and yet somehow, some way, he was also told that narrative. So really, our point was to inform. as much as we could. We, at the point in time, we didn't have much support from, the older generation, the fathers, the mothers that have dedicated their time and energy to the Amhara movement. We didn't have much of that support. And therefore, everything did dismantle before we expected it to. And I guess where that brings me now is that's what I'm trying to start back up, because this isn't something you just stop just because, there's still people dying every single day. I started this movement in 2020 with my friends, and now here we are today, 4 years later, going into 2025, still dealing with the same conversations that has started 30 years ago.
Well, it's probably got worse now. As you can see, there's a genocide, literally genocide happening in the Amhara region. Government-led drones and killing children and civilians. And you already mentioned the ones that the mass grave and children slaughters in Oromia of Amhara people, displaced people. You might have, if you came to Ethiopia, you might have seen all these children and families in Debre Brahan and other Samin Shua or Wello. It's all displaced people all over the place because they don't have homes and they were hated somehow, and there hasn't been any justice. But then it gets worse. It gets to the stage where they can't even survive at this moment. What do you think all of this? I mean, it must have broken your heart. And I was already asking someone else like similar question. It does break your heart. You were brought up in America, you were in Ethiopia, and you see how children being treated. Now you see the Ethiopian children being like that, like Amhara children growing in the detention center or in displaced somewhere really, they don't know, just growing without no school, no food, and nothing, pretty much abused. What does that make you think about Ethiopia and the rest of it?
It's heartbreaking, and it's like, sometimes I just look at what's happening, and like, there's been so many times where I've sat there and just thought, like, is this hopeless? Like, are we ever going to get like any solution whatsoever? Are we ever going to have somebody listen to us? Like, what is happening? To the point where it felt like the world is purposely silent, to the point where it was like as if we just didn't matter, as if we didn't exist in the world's eyes. And I can't sleep with that. I can't be okay with that. And I've seen like people my age, people that are Amhara, people that are Ethiopian, come out and yell for the Palestine matter, and have, feel all of these things and be able to understand what's happening, and bring out their humanity to stand up for people that are hurt and broken and abused. And for me to see that they've abandoned their own people, it's truly, truly heartbreaking. A lot of the times,
when you say they've abandoned, or do they have enough information, especially the youth? As you can see, the Palestinian movement is normally run by young people all over the world. But did we actually do that? The Ethiopian born, or if they parents, Ethiopian parents have children all over the place, do they actually tell them? Do they actually give them any awareness of what's happening so that the young nation can come out and talk about these things? Have we done enough?
I don't think we've done enough, nowhere near it, truly. I think that that's where a lot of the problem lies. But I know that I say this a lot, and I always come out and say, like, we should have educated our children and parents. Like, y'all should have done a bit better, but it's still not too late, and you still can go and educate your kids about what's happening. But I think that, like, I also want to give the parents some grace on this one sometimes, because I'm 23 years old, and I have every single material in my hand, every single possible means for me to research a cause that I want to. I have Google, I have just so much material if I truly did want to go ahead and go out my way to research it, because certain things I also, like, we make time for what we want to. I'm a big believer in that. So as much as I would say that the adults hold fault in that, they hold responsibility in not having have informed their children about what's happening. I also, because mind you, the reason why I say this is because I've had personal interactions over and over and over again with kids that will literally tell me like they know that what's happening to the Amhara people is wrong, but they're scared that their Tigray friend will feel some type of way about it if they speak about it. They also would tell me that, I understand what's happening, like, but politics is so messy. Ethiopian politics is so messy. I don't, I have a lot of Oromo friends, and I don't. That's crazy to me, because it's like we've gotten to a point in time where they've done so well educating their kids that they are now shaming the people with the truth from speaking their truth. I have had friends that I grew up with. Like, I had a friend, he does media actually. And he was like, he's, from Tigray, his family's from Tigray. Um, Me and him were really, really close. This is somebody I consider my brother growing up. I've known him since I was like 13, 14. He like completely removed me from social media, stopped answering my phone calls, all of this when the Tigray genocide hit. It's crazy because he was helping me out. He was helping like videograph the protests and the rallies that I would organize when it came to the Oromo side of things, when Hachalu Hundessa was the one that was killed. And the moment like, the Tigray genocide happened, he abandoned and to me, it started to like open my eyes where it's like, there's a lot of people, and there were people that we were all friends with, where they just did not want to get touchy and did not want to lose him as a friend either. And they just kept quiet. So I think that we all have a responsibility. We're all human beings, we have a working mind. God has blessed us all with the same level of capacity to be able to research and do all of these things. Of course, there aren't as many resources, which is what my role is right now, is to try my best to try and provide that, try and create a path where people are able to like go in and quickly just see what's happening, find an easy means of the materials to be able to do that, so you don't have to do the level of digging that I did, so you don't have to go through loops and holes. And people, there are so many of us that don't understand Amharic, and that can't read or write, and I could understand that gap. But I don't know, I think that this is like an effort that we all need to do personally. It's not just on the parents. I would say the parents for sure, but I think that it's all of us. Because if you're 23 years old, 24, 25, 26, and you're still blaming it on your parents, that's on you. That's like, you're grown, you can do your research. So just, I think that this is the only way we can get rid of this is through the
brought up as well. It depends how you're brought up. If you're brought up in a way that don't care about the country, or the parents didn't tell you anything about Ethiopia and didn't have that connection to the country, and then you can be 25 or 30, you still don't care, but it's not in your mind. It's how you were brought up. But then there are some people who also need some sort of encouragement, especially young people. I'm sure when they see you and whatever you need, whatever you're doing, every time you do that, they can get to see you, they can come to join you, because there haven't been enough information going around for the young people. The platform was very narrow. You can see that how narrow it is. You must have been really struggling to really penetrate and be, out there to fight for these things. So, but we must find a way of getting them out of their house and telling them exactly what's happening in the country. Well, in fact, I do like to tell. I would like you to tell them now what is really happening in the country, in the world. Whoever is watching this, whether it's a parent, whether it's young people, but anyone who's watching this video need to know what is happening in the country. Can you really tell us really what is in your mind happening in that country at this moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually over around 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago timeline, there was one full span of week where over 70 drones were launched on innocent civilians. Homes are being burnt down. You have religious leaders, church fathers being beheaded on camera. You have a pregnant mother's stomach being cut off on camera. You have soldiers that have gone rogue and are now cannibals and eating human beings and children. That's just outside of what we're talking about when it comes to rape. And we talk about rape being weaponized on these innocent women. Their homes are being broken into. It's quite horrific, because it already started off being bad enough that women were being raped. And I know we don't like to talk about this culturally, but men are being raped. It's quite horrific. Like, you have little boys being raped. You have church fathers, leaders being raped. And it's quite horrific. These things that we see, it's obviously it's tactics of war, and war, whether you're seeing it in Palestine take place and you're seeing all of these little kids losing their homes, everything they've known that was built around them being destroyed in a span of seconds, with drone attacks. And don't even get me started on the hospitals and the schools that have been destroyed, and to point of no return, where the city quite literally needs years to rebuild back to what it once was. And that's not even talking about the trauma, the mental and emotional trauma that these kids will now carry for the remainder of their lives, the ones that survived, the parents that had to endure all of this, that still now sit there and live in fear of what's going to happen to them, and who's going to be the next house to sit there and go through this violence. All of this is being orchestrated by the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, the person with quote unquote the highest power to protect its people, the person with quote unquote the highest authority to be able to have its country's, its people's interest at best interest at heart, but is rather failing them. And not only that, but is orchestrating all of these attacks, using his military to do all of these horrific acts, imprisoning political journalists, not only political journalists, human rights journalists that have gone out to speak about what's happening in the country, because the international media is refusing to speak on it. There have been people like international folk that have wanted to go into the country and do coverage of these things, that were able to successfully do it, but then later deemed persona non grata, which is banned from the country, and put blacklisted from being able to enter the country and do true reporting of what's happening. It's horrific. There's been over a 2-year educational gap. I don't think people realize just how big that is. 2-year educational gap for a whole population is quite big. You have kids that now we're supposed to graduate that are no longer doing that. You have kids in schools like Mekelle University, which is in Tigray area, in the Tigray area, that are of Amhara descent. My own cousin, my own personal cousin, my father's brother's son that I grew up with was assigned to go to Mekelle University, and they literally refused to give him his medication. You're not allowed to, mind you, he takes medication every day for him to be able to live healthy. And so you're not allowed to bring those medications into your college dorms with you, and any medicines that you have for like drug whatever purposes, so that they can try and control that, which is all great. But so they have you put your medication in the nurse's office, so that you can go in and take your medication when you need it. And there's been so many times where they've denied him that because they know that he's an Amhara. It's quite horrific. It's these are kids. This is a college student that I'm talking about that's my age, I don't even think people understand just how bad it's gotten. And on the ground, all of these things that I'm saying are happening every single day, for years and years and years now. And it's been not as quite like widely spread, and it was never this big in the very first 20-25 years of that 30-year time span that I speak about. But over these past 5 to 10 years, it's been exasperated in so many ways than we could possibly think about. Over the years, within that 20 to 25-year timeline, in the Amhara areas and the regions, innocent mothers have been given, medication and quote unquote vaccines that would protect them from viruses and things of that sort. But really, they were making sure that they were taking away their fertilization. They were making sure these women would no longer be able to have kids, and therefore resulting in the population decline of over 6% within. That's like not even counting the people that were lost in war, but rather what the census is showing us of what the Amhara community is looking like. These things are really, really, really horrific and bad, and we're just not talking about it. And so it's a lot. It's deep. It's so much happening, but once again, it's not too many resources showing and shedding light on what's truly happening on the ground.
Right. It's like you said, it's a trauma really in that country. It's one after another, and I've witnessed quite a lot of traumas as well. Like you said, I have interviewed children who've been raped in Amara region, boys. That's in the previous war, And then, schools has been destroyed, homes have been destroyed, and they haven't done anything to it. And then now there's another war. The government is destroying more, and like you said, in drones or anything. And the nation as it is has been under genocide, and there's a huge problem in terms of finance and economy and business and all the rest of the hospitals, everything else, let alone schools. But survival is an issue in the Amhara region. But then if you can go to Oromia region as well, there's a similar problem as well. There's also a war, and there are still children who don't go to school. There are people who cannot go out and do the things that they want to do. There has been kidnaps and killing, all the rest of it in the Tigray also region after the war, and still is. There's a huge famine and economic crisis, and some schools have been closed. With all these problems in the country, the prime minister you talk about, the one that has got the highest, power and responsibility, and very busy at decorating the capital city and displacing the people who've been living in and building that city. What do you think of that?
That's an amazing question. I'm so glad that you brought it up. It's horrible. It feels like a show. It literally feels like they've it's like a facade. Like, that's what I would like to call it, is it's a facade. Everything that he's doing is a facade. A couple years ago, he had opened up like a bread factory, saying, we're gonna go ahead and solve the country's hunger. And that bread factory was glorified and internationally recognized and things of that sort of, oh, this man has come in with peace and he's gonna remove Ethiopia's hunger. Mind you, this place closed down within a span of a couple of weeks. And the media was so quick to spread around everywhere that this man has, done such a great deed. But they did not show us the fact that it closed down within a couple of weeks, because he did not even plan it well enough, for the electricity of the country to be able to maintain that factory. You would see this man go out his way to build a museum, quote unquote, trying to preserve the greatness of the country and its history and things of that sort. But you're quite literally a part of the history that's destroying the country. You're going to be written in the history books as the dictator of modern day Ethiopia. And yet you're trying to tell us that you're building a museum to preserve, the history of the country. It just contradicts. Yet you're going and killing people in areas of quite literally 60 to 70 kilometers away from the capital city, Addis Ababa, wiping out churches, wiping out priests, where people in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, once somebody is passed away and left this earth, there would be a ceremony, a goodbye ceremony, where you would have priests come and pray over the corpse and the dead body and all of these things, and send the goodbye in a peaceful way. You don't have fathers that are capable of doing that, because they're all dead within 60 to 70 kilometers away from the center city. And yet this man is sitting here trying to sell us a lie, a fabricated, vision of what he's trying to bring into the country. Received the Peace Nobel when this man has quite literally been the horror of Ethiopia, the horrific dictator that has taken over the seat of this great country, this great nation that has built its name up internationally been recognized for its greatness, for its peaceful, ways of leadership over the years, with our fathers leading it. Prior to that, 30-year leadership is what I'm referring to. And just all the great things that we've been able to accomplish as an African nation, not to mention it being the only uncolonized country to date. And so it's quite, I don't know how to explain it. It doesn't take much to understand that this man is playing in our faces. He's acting as a great actor. I'll tell you that he's a great actor. And I would hope that people are finally starting to wake up from it and starting to stand for what's right and say, hey, this doesn't seem like what you're doing here, because there's people dying. And, quite frankly, I'm unwilling to turn a blind eye for it anymore.
Yes, it's a good point that you mentioned that. No, normally people have the right to believe in whatever they want, and as long as they don't do any harm to other people. I'm personally only responsible for my actions, my principles, and my thoughts, and my principles and belief system. And but then it kind of worries me sometimes when I see people supporting killers, supporting such kind of horror in the same country. They can see that the government is doing all these, horrible things and to the nation, to the children. How can you stand and defend that government? Does that bother you? Like, it bothers me because it's worrying, because we're in the same country and we're all called human.
So yeah, it's I can't fathom it either. It feels like we're seeing two different realities, as if we're on two completely different planets, two different we're talking regarding two different countries, because if your concern in the country at this point in time is, oh, he's done so great for the economy and he's going to do this and that, and you're buying onto a dream that talks finances and economy versus human lives, I think there's a problem. I think you should truly, take a mirror to yourself and really question yourself and where your head's at, what your priorities are. Because if you're seeing, we're so big on, like, we live in a democratic country. For example, I'm in the United States of America. You're in London. A vast majority of us from the diaspora community live in quite, arguably fair and safe and peaceful countries at the point in time. And so for us to be sitting here and thinking purely of just what our pockets can benefit at this point in time, in disregarding what's happening to the people within just a couple miles away from the center city, then our humanity should be at question. Our humanity should truly be looked at, and because that's at jeopardy. That's in jeopardy right there, because I can't fathom that. You cannot sit here and see all of these things and say, oh, what can you do? If he leaves, who would lead? That's the question I hear a lot. Anybody is better than a dictator. Anybody, quite literally, anybody is better than a dictator. And I promise.
Should that stop any actions against them? Because we don't know the future, but perhaps we could do both.
We can do both, because, mind you, Ethiopians, we have so many intellectuals. We have so very many intellectuals. Let's go back in history to the timeline of when Ihadig or Meles Zenawi, the previous prime minister that led the new party that's now currently destroying its country, came in. Nobody knew who Meles was. This was a war guy that was fighting his way, killing his own people, doing whatever he did to get to the money and the power. And all of a sudden, there was a guy that was named Meles Zenawi that was leading the country. It was like, there was no like official voting where this man was known for quite some time. It wasn't like the American politics that you would see, where you would know about that politician's history for 20, 30 years. Like, that was not the case whatsoever. The man came in and destroyed the place, So like, and that was for the evil, that was for the bad. And so for us to sit here and think that there aren't intellectuals that are truly 1 million times, I would say, qualified over this dictator and killer, once again, we need to take a look at our history. We need to take a look and understanding of who our people are, the great levels of education that these people have been able, who the Fano people are. I think people get it really misunderstood. The Fano people, a vast majority of them are not military people. They're not the government trained military folk. No, these are your average doctors. These are your engineers. These are your architects. These are your professors at college universities. The Fano is now a group and a collection of people with educated folk that have completely different careers, that had nothing to do with war and fighting for its country, that have now been forced to get up and defend their people, their homeland, and their families. That's what this is. And so for us to be, sitting here thinking like, okay, who better than him? Truly anybody else better than him, So we have intellects after intellects with religion on their right side. The people with, and the reason why I always come back to religion is because when somebody has a higher power that they fear, that holds them liable to the actions that they do. That holds them liable to the words that come out their mouth, the actions that they do regarding their people, not just their people, but themselves, because they know that there's an afterlife after this, where there's true judgment, where they'll have to face the true creator. And they wouldn't want to go down that lane even just for themselves. See, that's the biggest key in all of this. This man has come in deeming that he's from two different religious backgrounds, and he's talking about, equality and things of that sort. But you don't see, God in this man whatsoever. You don't. And that's by God, I mean, whether it's for our Muslim brothers and sisters listening here, I'm talking our Christian brothers and sisters listening here. This man is not of God. This man is of a different spirit, I would say. I've always said this is a spiritual war, but this man wants to destroy Ethiopia as it is. The Amhara people are, they've been known their whole lives for talking about Ethiopia. Every time they're asked where they're from, they would not say, "Oh, I'm Amhara." They would say, "I'm Ethiopian." That was our answer. That's where this man came in to attack us, is through our love for our country, our love for our ground, and our who we are. Fano is not a liberation front. That's the part that people don't understand, I think, is the fact that we are not a liberation front. Amharas do not have a liberation front. We want Ethiopia to be whole again. We want all Ethiopians to be safe from this dictator, not just the Amhara people, but there's innocent Tigray mothers that have been involved in this war that they had nothing to do with. It's crazy because the very last time I went down to the country before, and I'm no longer able to go back now, or I'm now persona non grata as well, is 2019 for 1 week, actually. When I went, the reason why I initially wanted to go was because I kept telling my mom, gadam nafaking, which is like, I really, like, I want to go to the monasteries back home and get connected to God. So I go down to the country, and the place that I wanted to see at that point in time was actually at Aksumsion in the Tigray area. So my mom, because it's known to be one of the most, religious sites, or most well-known religious sites to that stay there, which is like Aksum, Lalibela, all of these things. And so I went and I was blessed enough to be able to go down to Aksumsion. And I recall, like, truly coming in, and you see people that don't even have shoes on. You see children that are nowhere near the level of luxury that we're talking about within the Tigray community. You see people that were just truly like humble servants of God. And that's what I got to see. And I remember telling my mom, I'm like, "Mom, like, this is so sad. This is like truly, like, these people aren't living a quarter the life that the people that lead the Tigray People's Liberation Front are living. Nowhere near that. And yet, like, the way they've, created this vision and this facade of a story is that the whole Tigray community stands behind them. But that is untrue. That is not the case of the matter whatsoever. I got to go to Aksumsion and visit and go back, and that just kept replaying in my head is, these people have done a lot of damage, because not only have they came in and, did what they did and got money out of it and scammed the people for years and killed the people for years, but they've also, like, created animosity towards the remainder of the innocent folk that live out there. There's so many, like, mothers that are sitting here crying and being told all of these false things, and they grew up being told that the Amhara people hate them historically, and that the Amhara people want to take control over them, and that they just don't like their being, which is untrue. Because now today you are seeing, even in the midst of war, the Fano on the ground fighters, you would see them go in and in areas where they're taking over from the enemy, what you would quote unquote say, you would see them interacting with these people, and being kind and telling them, "Hey, we don't hate you. We love you. You are a part of us. You are Ethiopians. This is what I stand for. This is what I am. I love all Ethiopians whatsoever. But I'm currently advocating for the Amhara cause, because those are the people that have been targeted for this long, and continue to be targeted for the love they have for the country. Amharas and Ethiopians have never been separated, never will they be separated going down the line. Same thing with the Oromo community. There's so many of them. Their whole history book was falsified. The government has purposefully given them a completely different history book, telling them false information regarding the Amhara community. These are brainwashed people that you're talking about. Of course, you cannot sit here and say that, these people have been through this and that, and so disregard what's happening now. Never would I say that, but there's a lot of innocent people that are truly being caught in the crossfires of a 1%er that's sitting here eating off of their blood. And we're disregarding the fact that the Tigray war quite literally started because of the fact that these people wanted to be a separate country. And mind you, we're not talking about the innocent folk that are on the ground, but we're talking about the powerful people with the money and the power that went ahead and said that they wanted to be a separate country, and they hid within the innocent civilians' homes. That to me it shows you, it's clear as day and light, that they don't care about their own people either, And so the Fano is not only fighting for the freedom and of or the safety of the Amhara people, but rather of all Ethiopians, And this is not me trying to be an Ethiopianist whatsoever. I stand for the Amhara cause 110%. I am an Amhara as well, but my mom also has a Gurage side to her. This is who we are as Ethiopians. Is we've always been married into different families and different cultures and different ethnic backgrounds. This is who we are as people. Not only has our own ethnic group never been an issue for us to intertwine with one another, live with one another, religion has never been a divide between us. Islam survives today because of the fact that while every single other nation in the world shut their doors for Islam, Ethiopia is the only one that accepted them and took them in and brought them in and told them, hey, you can have a home here. Here you can stay here. You can live with us. We will take care of you. Islam lives today because of Ethiopia. So that to you should show that every time I come out and I talk about my Orthodox faith, that is never ever to disregard or to put down any other religion whatsoever. It's for me to speak on what I believe in and where I stand, but that my Christianity, me being an Orthodox, teaches me to love others, to love all. That's what the basis of my faith is and the basis of my religion is. And that's what we've been taught as Amharas, as Ethiopians, our whole life. So yeah, that's where my head's at with that.
That's wonderful. That is what Ethiopia used to be like. And I'm sure in the future we're going to get that back once the evil spirit goes away. I've never seen any nation as a nation hating any other nation except the politicians and the government and the rest of it. So, but now we're in trouble. Like you said, the Amhara people especially targeted genocide. They're declaring genocide on it. Killing displacement, the drone attack and everything is like literally flooding to Amhara area, on Amhara people. However, there are also problems in other areas. And you go to the south, you go to Tigray, you go to Oromia. They all have separate, different problems per se, not as bad probably. But then we should see, as a nation, as Ethiopian, also should see that the government is no good to anyone. So how can you think you can come back, can come together and try to really focus and targeting this government to make sure this government stops, eventually change the government, but stops what it's doing at the moment? And shouldn't any other nation, be the voice also, whatever is happening in the Mara region, any other places? Should we just be quiet because it doesn't happen at my home? What do you think of that? And also, even when you come to Amhara people, although all these things that are happening, any human being should go really upset about it. But then also when you come to Amhara people, not all Amhara is coming together, going against this attack. So shouldn't we do something about it? What do you think?
Absolutely. I think that where we can start is unity. We talk about this a lot, and for anybody that has, extensive knowledge of what's happening politically on the ground, people are always like, yeah, they need to unite. But I think that that's actually, like, that term itself is a divisive, or like, division, like pushing agenda that people are putting out there, because I think that everybody's doing what they need to do on the ground. I think that the true division that's happening is within the diaspora community. I think that if we are able to come together and unify as one, we would make great changes truly happen. Because at this point in time, the issue that we're facing is you have international governments, you have the United States that would actually went ahead and gave money to this dictator as quote unquote aid, but that man went ahead and used that same money to then launch drones on its own people, to then arm his own military to attack these innocent civilians. Our job as the people within the diaspora community is to make sure that we amplify what's happening and the real truth of the case. Make sure that we have translated media that's coming out, and translated documents that's coming out and showing the world what's truly happening. Our unison and working together will truly change all of that, because right now you have the World Bank and the IMF and the U.S. Government, that the I would say the former administration, the Biden administration, same with UAE, Turkey, all of these places giving aid to this dictator. There's been $16.6 billion, not million, $billion that have been sent in aid for this man to use against his own people. That right there tells you that if we had unity, because mind you, I'm a citizen, for example, of the United States of America. I have voting power. Same thing with you, for example, you're in London. There's so very many of us that are have been spread apart into so many different parts of the world. And I always say that that's for a purpose. I think, like, I'm big on saying that God does every single thing for a reason. God has a purpose behind even us, like people that have had the opportunity to leave the country, is also to help be a voice for these people that are voiceless, that are on the ground, fearing for their lives every single day. If you're in Addis Ababa and you speak and something happens, you can literally get imprisoned for it, So for us to be in a space in the comfort of foreign countries and have all of the resources to be able to be a helping hand to these people, I think that the first thing that we need to do is come to unified ground, stop individualizing movements. One thing with me, for example, is every time I come out on these protests, or every time I do something like this, people come out and they're like, oh, let's interview you, let's do this and that. Like, I absolutely don't mind doing these things and coming on these interviews and, being a part, like, or helping push the movement forward. But the one thing that I ask in Xavier's name and in God's name to all of y'all right now watching this and even moving forward is, I really hope that y'all don't individualize me as well. I'm one piece of the movement. I'm doing my due diligence as a human being. I'm not doing anything special. Please do not make this movement about me. I don't want that to be the case whatsoever, because I think that's what we keep doing, is we individualize the movement to one person. And when that one person does something wrong or something happens and they, you literally just go ahead and drop the movement right there and then. And that's not how it's supposed to work. There are people dying on the ground. Hermela is just one person in this movement. I am Hermela Mesfin. Okay. So Hermela Mesfin is just one person in this movement. This is not me. It's not I'm just one piece, one tool in the amplifying voices of what's happening back home. We can produce 10 million of me if we truly all put our hands together, and not just me. There's so many people with so much more extensive knowledge than I have. There's people that I currently work with that are completely brilliant, in my opinion. You have Sheba, that's been in the movement here for how long now, that's given her life day and night to dedicating her time to the cause. You have Haile, another brother of mine that's been helping me out with this whole thing. And he's been not only helping me out, he himself has been a separate voice that's been helping the cause for years as well. These people are sacrificing their family time, their children, school, for me, like work, all of these things. So I don't want y'all to individualize the movement. I want y'all to all come together and make it your own movement, because that's what it is you as a human being, not just as an Amara, not just as an Ethiopian, but as a human being. Once you understand what's happening and once you feel it and you tap into your humanity and understand what's happening is not a joke and just to be left aside, we have the capability of educating the world. We have the capability of having international sanctions taken place on this man to be removed from his seat. You have organizations like the United Nations and African Union and EU and all of these things that are built so that you can keep the balance of how leaders work and the world peace that it needs to be grounded to. So for us to not even have gotten that voice from the UN, to be able to have that, to create that sanction, as an active United Nations member. Same thing with the African Union. This is our job. If we don't care, how do we expect the rest of the world to care? If we don't come together, how do we expect the rest of the world to come together? Every time I've spoken to the congressmen and the senators and all of these people, the one thing that people would ask me, or they would ask us, is, so are y'all all on the same page? Are y'all all on the same, on the same ground? Do you all agree on the same ideas? Like, hand on the Bible, as I say, this Neil Parrott of Maryland had asked me that, I remember. And I was like, yeah, we are. And I walked out and I just sat there and thought, like, this is sad. This is so heartbreaking that, yes, I said that to him, but deep down, I know that there's still a divide within us. And that needs to be removed. I would like to think that all of us that are working in different branches, different countries, different states, have the same agenda for a better Ethiopia, but we need to do it together. If not, we don't have a voice.
Right. Well, like you said, we do need a collective power to be able to bring about any change. But this struggle needs a leader. So although we don't like to individualize any movement, but we needed leader, some sort of leading position so that organizing things, so that people could come and do the things they were asked to do. So you're coming out as a leader now. That's what I'm saying. So if you're organizing people, if you're planning any events, and then it'd be easy for you to come out and call for any action, and then people could come and implement the plans, whatever. So are you planning anything currently? I know you guys have been organizing protests and the rest of it. Is there anything coming up so that we can tell people?
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that last I spoke to you, I also had came in and said that, like, I will do everything I possibly can, I humanly can, to start up Justice and Peace for Ethiopia, the youth movement, once again, so we can start, working on the history angle that I've been saying there's a lack of, and then same thing with the current media and the current information and the news that's happening, to be able to get translated, so we can have youth groups all around the world to be able to come together and start doing the work, start getting into these office places, start, applying for the staffer positions in Congress and Senate. We need our people in there. This is how they infiltrated us for years and years and years now. So my promise to the Ethiopian people, to the Amhara people, is that till the day I die, I will promise that I will, do everything I can to provide that platform, open those doors for the youth, people that are coming after me, all the little kids as well that want to know about their country and what it stands for and what they're about. I will do everything that I can to do that. And then another thing is, we also have, God willing, a protest coming up that's also hopefully going to be worldwide done. And I'm going to reach out to you and coordinate with you as well to get the London people organized really worldwide. And we're planning on something big, and once we get to the point of a couple of weeks leading up to it, we're planning hopefully for this to be taking place in January, right around the timeline of the inauguration for the new upcoming president, the 47th president of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump, and so that we can show what is going on and bring hopefully international attention to it. So that I know that we've done a number of rallies back to back, weeks and days in advance over the past couple weeks that have led up to now, between October, September timeline to now. And we're going to keep going. This one hopefully is going to be big enough to shake up the world. That's what we're aiming to do. So as of right now, we have the upcoming protest that I will come in and update you about when I do have a set date. And then behind the scenes, we're also doing everything we possibly can. We're trying to get the victim stories to come out and be shown in English and languages that we can all share all around the world and hopefully get international attention on. So we're doing the work. We just need everybody to have the energy to roll up their sleeves and get started and join along in the upcoming weeks that are ahead of us.
Wonderful. Well, nearer the time, you'll tell us all the details about it. Thank you so much, Hermela Mesfin. In whatever you are doing, thank you so much. Stay strong.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Meti. You have a great one.
You've been watching Menalesh Meti in English. Hermela Mesfin, as you can see, remarkable young Ethiopian American activist. She has been with me and she's planning lots of events. We keep an eye on her. If anything new, I will come back and feed you with all the information. I am Metasebia Ketsela. Until next time, see you.